One of the moments I fear the most in a D&D table is when I'm just done describing a scene or situation, ask my players what they would like to do, and there's nothing but an awkward silence as an answer. Oh, I get it. It was my fault all along. If your D&D players are lost, maybe you're misusing player agency. But wait, if I tell them what they're supposed to do, am I not removing their player agency? I really believe it's the other way around. Hello and welcome to the Deep Dice Press. We are a bunch of friends on the 30s who have played D&D since our teen years and who love role-playing and storytelling. On a given day, it just so happened that we were all going through career transitions and thought, why not give a shot on developing D&D products? And that's how our indie D&D publisher was born. Small in size, but big in aspirations. Our purpose is to take our D&D adventures to the magical excitement and deep immersion we experience with the epic tales and narratives of humankind. If you find this content helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the bell to receive notifications of new videos with similar content. You can also find the links for our social media on the description down below. Why are your D&D players too quiet on your game sessions? It's often quite hard to navigate scheduling conflicts and have a group of friends sitting together for a D&D session. So, it's especially frustrating for me when we're finally together and despite that, my players are quiet and unsure about what to do. That's easy to happen in social encounters, where the pace of the adventure depends a lot on the player's initiative. That's why I wanted to share what I did so my players would know what to do in social encounters. We'll first talk about how to get rid of awkward silences in your D&D table, what may be causing such silences, and what I did to solve that problem with my players. Then, we'll talk about something that took a while for me to figure out. If your D&D players are lost, maybe you're misusing player agency. We'll discuss what is player agents, why it's important, and how to make sure that our players always know what to do without removing player agency. So, join us, won't you? Let's start talking about how to get rid of awkward silences in your D&D table, what I identified as the causes of those silences in my D&D groups, and what I did to solve that. One of the moments I fear the most in a D&D table is when I'm just done describing a scene or situation, ask my players what they would like to do, and there's nothing but an awkward silence as an answer. As I gained experience as a DM, those moments would become less and less frequent, but they still happen. One of those moments happened in a recent homebrew adventure. The party was investigating violent attacks on a trading route, disguised as merchants traveling with a trading wagon. They had already had a few encounters, and they had finally arrived at the point where they would uncover key information about the reasons of the attacks and the whereabouts of those responsible for them. There used to be a hilltop fortress at Slingdyke, but it is now reduced to some earthworks, a guard post, and a beacon that may be lit to warn of invading forces by night. Nevertheless, it sits at the crossroads of two trading routes, and it is the last inhabited region before Castle Crag at the Stormhorns and the land beyond the kingdom. A nearby farm offers shelter, hot meals, and cold ale to merchants and travelers. What appears to be the family of owners is attending some wooden tables out in the open. You spot a few groups either dining or setting camp. A band of soldiers, a lone voyager, a trading caravan of 5, and a lively group of travelers. What would you like to do? A long and awkward silence followed, with my players looking at each other and muttering things like, what do you guys want to do? Nobody seemed to be the one to take the initiative. Then, one of them finally spoke and laid down the options for the group to decide. They could talk to the people around and poke for information, but as they were traveling undercover, they would risk giving away their identity to potential spies. Oh, I get it. It was my fault all along. When I made that an undercover quest, I implicitly set goals and risks for the adventure, and the party was responding to them. You see, Everybody has good and bad days, but I'll give you something for granted. If there are players on your table, they're eager to take the initiative and put multiple ideas into practice. So I asked myself what was preventing them from doing so, and I think I found the answer for this case. Players need to feel comfort and confidence to take action, or at least to speculate about what they should or could do. I learned to be especially careful on making sure there are clear encounter goals for the players. As long as they are sure about what they want, they can discuss how they're gonna do it. That's how I got rid of awkward silences in my D&D tables. I made sure my players would feel comfortable with what they wanted to do. What about you? What did you do to get rid of awkward silences in your D&D tables? What would you like to do? Few things on a D&D table put as larger a smile on my face as when this question is followed by the complete and utter chaos of 3 or 4 players speaking all at once. That means that my players know exactly what to do and how to do it, and that the game session is on fire. That is typically easier to achieve in combat encounters, but why my D&D players are full of ideas also in my social encounters? It wasn't always like this. I learned what to do to increase the chance that that would happen, and it's simpler than I thought it would be. The most important thing is making sure there are clear encounter goals for the players. As long as players have a clear understanding of what they need to do in an encounter, they can start to think on how they're gonna do it. This is a bit trickier than it sounds because it needs to be done in-game. In other words, previous encounters or adventures should provide clear information about what are the expected goals and risks of future social encounters. I'll use this recent homebrew adventure as an example, as I had the opportunity to run it with 2 different groups with 2 opposing results. The first time around, it was a small disaster, but it took only a few changes to make it exciting and fun the second time. The party was investigating violent bandit attacks on a trading route. Disguised as merchants, the party was about to meet other travelers in a resting camp. I wanted them to interact with those travelers who would provide precious information for their quest. When I ran this adventure with the first group, however, by the time I finished describing the scene, I was met with dead silence from the players. The players were apprehensive to approach the travelers, and it was my own fault. When I made that an undercover quest, I implicitly set goals and risks for the adventure. The goal was keep a low profile, and the risks were there may be consequences if you don't. Well, guess what? When I set the stage like that, the party immediately became very conservative with any social encounter. I had created incentives for that exact behavior after all. When I ran the same adventure with the second group, I made subtle changes and they transformed the players' behavior. Now, the group patron explicitly instructed them in the very beginning of the adventure to talk to the travelers on the road so they could investigate clues related to the quest. That was it. One sentence that I added in the patron's instructions, and it changed the group behavior for the entire adventure. Instead of be careful with social interactions, I was now saying engage in every possible social interaction, but be careful. That was a fully different instruction after all. With that one sentence in the start of the adventure, I set a clear goal for an encounter which was hours of gameplay ahead and made the players comfortable and confident to interact with travelers at that resting site, just like I expected them to. I use very different ways to set social encounter goals along the adventure. They may be very generic, such as talk to the travelers on the road, or very specific, such as talk to the outpost captain, who will have the information you need. While all NPCs, patrons, villains, allies, or rivals may provide or let slip future social encounter goals, they're definitely not the only means to do so. Exploration encounters can be easily used for that as well, through locations or objects. A raided farm along the trading route may indicate that the peasants on the resting camp ahead were probably attacked by the bandits. A logbook found on an attacked caravan may include an entry from the merchant captain pointing out he was warned by one of the NPCs on the resting camp a few days before. I mean, in the end of the day, those clues are setting up future social encountering goals for the party. Approach those NPCs when you meet them because they will have relevant information to share. Once I learned to provide clear in-game encounter goals to my players, they became very aware of what they needed to achieve in upcoming social encounters, and that gave them more incentive and time to discuss different ideas on how they would approach those encounters. And we all want a D&D table full of ideas and initiatives, don't we? Okay, so far we discussed how the reason for a quiet D&D table may be that players are unsure about what to do on a social encounter. I strive to provide clear social encounter goals so my players feel more comfortable and confident about what they should do on those encounters. But wait, if I tell them what they're supposed to do, am I not removing their player agency? I really believe it's the other way around. If your players are lost, maybe you're misusing player agency. So I wanted to share what is player agency for me, why it's so important, and how I make sure I'm properly using it in my D&D games. One of my main concerns as a dungeon master is making sure that my players' actions and decisions matter for the adventure. After all, that's one of the core elements that differentiate D&D and role-playing games in general from other tabletop games. Different choices bring different consequences. That's what we call player agency. However, I may be misusing player agency if I'm not clear with the players about what are the encounter goals. I was once running an adventure in which the party needed to find the lost diaries of Rosario Ortega in her family's crypt. They would have an unexpected encounter though. The family's crypt was guarded by a revenant, an intelligent undead creature that is not evil by nature but seeks to revenge his violent death. You enter a few steps into the crypt's garden and you suddenly see a form in the shadows. "Get out!" he says menacingly. I wanted to give the players the option of a tough battle against the Revenant or a social interaction where they would commit on helping him on his quest in exchange for the diaries. I immediately swing my axe and I'm going for the head.
What did you do? I went for the head.
And there goes a potentially interesting encounter. While they could have trodden more carefully, my players had no idea there were more layers for that encounter. I never made it clear for them what were the goals for that interaction. The less clear the goal and the structure of the situation, the less options or the lower player agency I'm actually providing to my players. I like to think of player agency in two different layers. The first layer is freedom of choice, meaning that the players may freely choose their course of action, and that me, as the dungeon master, will not try and impose a given direction on them. The second layer is the consequence of action, meaning that one given action may have different outcomes: success, partial success, or failure. The combined effect of action and outcome brings a consequence for the players. My job there, as the DM, is to make sure I set a fair challenge for their chosen course of action and make sure that its consequence is exciting for the players. In other words, players should feel they're actually free to do whatever they want, that their choices may lead to easier or harder challenges, and their actions, successes, and failures will have an impact for the adventure. And also, that I will try my best to keep the adventure exciting for them, even if they've made a poor choice or failed miserably. But why is player agency so important? Because knowing that you have freedom to make your own choices and that they will bring better or worse consequences creates challenge, curiosity, and excitement in D&D. It creates player immersion and engagement. It makes players care more deeply for the game. When I, as a dungeon master, successfully provide real player agency in my D&D table, I'm aiding my players to interact with the story more with the eyes of their characters and less with the eyes of a player. I'm sincerely inviting my players to tell the story together with me, and they usually respond to that with greater involvement and therefore much fewer moments of awkward silences. It's easy to think that a looser D&D adventure structure provides higher player agency. I don't think that's true for many reasons. One thing that I learned in my campaigns is that if I set clear encounters goals for my players, I'm providing them with more player agency rather than taking it away. One of the most fun parts of D&D is the freedom the players have to take the adventure in any direction. But it's still a game. And a game needs goals and structure. If there are no goals or structure, players don't know what to do. And if you don't know what to do, your player agency becomes useless. In contrast, once I set clear encounter goals for the players, their approach on how to achieve such goals is only limited by their imagination. And that, my friends, is true player agency, in my opinion. Of course, the challenge here is to set in-game goals for the characters rather than meta-game goals for the players. I've talked in other videos about how to do that on a campaign or adventure level by making sure adventure hooks are aligned with characters' goals and motivations. Let me now share an example of how I set in-game goals on an encounter level. The adventurers were on a quest to retrieve the lost diaries of Rosario Ortega in her family's crypt. They didn't know that yet, but there was a revenant guarding the Ortega's crypt. The revenant would be hostile to the characters and could be faced in a challenging combat, but he would also be willing to give them what they wanted as long as they offered to help him execute his revenge. I wanted to make sure my players knew that the Revenant could be willing to collaborate. I wanted my players to know, through the course of the adventure, that their goal could be to make a deal with the Revenant once they met him. As you can see, providing them with this knowledge does not remove player agency. Once they met him, they could do whatever they wanted and take whichever approach they wished. But I wanted to do all of that in-game. So what I did was build those goals into a previous encounter. The thief you rescued from the mob's rage is so thankful to you that he insists to make you company wherever you're going next to return the favor. Where are you going, by the way? We're going to the Ortega's crypt. Oh, okay. Well, I'm not going there. Thanks again for the help. Bye-bye. Wait, what? Why wouldn't you go there? Someone murdered the Ortegas a few months ago. They say it was a conspiracy to take the family's estate. But Salvador Ortega is not dead. I mean, he's not alive either. I was sleeping near the family's crypt one night. He woke me up and told me to stay away from his crypt. He then told me he would not rest before he found the murderers of him and his sister, Rosario. I have not gone mad. I saw him. He talked to me. There we go. Adding this interaction in a previous encounter, I managed to set up one possible goal for the upcoming encounter with the Revenant. It may also be that I want to make this social encounter challenging for my players, and I can do so by not simply agreeing to collaborate with the characters. They will have to earn it. So I can plan for reasons why the Revenant would or would not agree to collaborate, and the players will have to figure their way out of obtaining what they want from him. They could persuade, negotiate, spy, deceive, steal, threaten, blackmail, or figure out any other way they would approach the Revenant. And they may succeed or fail, and benefit or suffer from the consequences of their actions. That's full-on player agency. On the other hand, if they were to disregard the possibility of the social interaction, they would not have to make any decision, and with no decision, there is no player agency at all. That's why I'm not afraid of setting clear social encounter goals for my players. I'm confident that when I do so, I'm not removing player agency, nor am I making their life too easy. Quite the opposite. By setting clear social encounter goals, I'm making sure they know exactly what they have to do, and that opens a wonderful window of limitless freedom of action and creativity of how they're gonna do it. If you've never tried that on your adventures, give it a shot. I bet you'll be surprised with the results, just like I was. We talked about a lot of things, so let's try to wrap it up. Why are your D&D players too quiet on your game sessions? We're trying to answer this question considering social encounters, as their pace depends a lot on the player's initiative. The first thing to figure out is how to get rid of awkward silences in your D&D table. In my experience, the main cause for awkward silences is the lack of comfort and confidence for the players to take action in a social encounter when they're unsure about what they're supposed to do. I started to pay special attention that I was setting clear encounter goals for the players so they would be comfortable and confident about what they wanted to achieve. Unclear encounter goals may be the reason why your D&D players bring no ideas for your social encounters. I managed to set clear social encounter goals for players using NPCs, patrons, villains, allies, or rivals to provide or to let slip those goals. But not only then, I also use locations and objects like a raided farm or a logbook to provide subtle clues or explicit goals about what players should seek in upcoming encounters. I had an initial concern if this approach could reduce player agency, but I actually think that if your players are lost, maybe you're misusing player agency. To better understand that, I think it's important to break down player agency in two different layers. The first layer is freedom of choice, meaning the players may freely choose their course of action and that I will not impose a direction on them. The second layer for player agency is consequence of action, meaning that an action may have different outcomes, success, partial success, or failure, which in turn brings an actual impact for the adventure. When I set a clear encounter goal, my players are free to ignore it or seek it. And if they do, they may succeed or fail. Whichever is their path, it will bring consequences for the adventure. Making sure my players know what they have to do actually opens a wonderful window for limitless freedom of action and creativity of how they're gonna do it. Finally, it's important to remember that I don't want to set up metagame goals for my players. What I want are in-game goals for their characters. For me, the best approach for that is building future encounter goals into previous encounters in the adventure. When I'm building my D&D adventures, I try to keep in mind I'm both creating a cool story and designing a game. From a game design viewpoint, it's very important to make sure my social encounters have clear goals for my players. But I don't want to simply state that to my players. There are cool ways to communicate those goals in-game to the characters. And I wholeheartedly believe that doing so, I'm providing my D&D group with more player agency rather than downplaying it. Try to keep this approach in mind next time you build social encounters. Maybe it's the small push your game sessions need to get rid of awkward silence. It surely made a big difference for me. If you're interested in the content of this video and would like to know more about it, click on the link on the description below to download for free our booklet, Make Your Character Matter. You can also find more related content in our social networks. All links are available in the description below. If you want to check out a module where we apply all concepts discussed in this channel, look out for our new campaign, The Kingdom of Cormyr, One Purple Raven, available next winter. Clicking on the screen, you may find more videos on how to create exciting D&D adventures and characters, what makes a D&D campaign exciting, and what I did to deliver high-energy D&D sessions and avoid boring games. Our next video is never let your D&D players get distracted on your table again. If you think it might be interesting for you, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell to receive notifications for new content. This video makes part of our series on how to create great D&D campaigns. In this series, we discuss what we believe to be the core elements of an outstanding D&D campaign for players who enjoy role-playing and storytelling. Great characters and great stories. In the Great Characters videos, we talk about the importance of backstories, allies, bringing the party together, and how to connect all of that into an outstanding D&D campaign. In the Great Stories videos, we discuss topics such as building up tension and suspense, plot lines, plot twists, villains and patrons, as well as advanced storytelling techniques. And yet, the best way to create great adventures is getting inspiration from great ideas. So be sure to share your great ideas and experiences in the comments down below. What have you done to get rid of awkward silences in your D&D table? I'm sure your experience will inspire not only us, but many others. Thank you for sharing this moment with us. We are the Deep Dice Press.